Hi everyone, it's Tony Campana from Tony Murray's Creations. Thank you for joining me today. I want to show you a really quick, cute little card that hopefully would brings a smile to your face, because it did bring one to mine as I was creating it. And it's using some new stamp sets from the new annual catalog. And actually, just see the stamp sets. So it's the Sharing Sunshine and the Sunny Sentiments, and you can find those in the annual catalog, and that's on page 38 and 39. And they're a great companion sets because this is just a fun little sunny face that you can make with the stamps, and then the sentiments are called Sunny Sentiments, so they pair very well with each other. So I just wanted to show you a card that we did in our stamp class last month using both of these sets, and it's using a fold that I think is called a bookbind fold. I really need to research these folds a little bit better before I do the video, so I can tell you exactly what they are. And I also need to remount my stamps because I had them all mounted for class, and I have since taken them off, which I usually leave them on for a little bit of time because I usually have extra packets left over and I like to finish up making all my cards. Anyway, that didn't take too long. So we're using the little half, like the sun rays, little smiley face, two of these little random patterns, this little curly Q and just these 3 dots. And from the Sunny Sentiments, I'm using the Happy Hello to You. And when I did the class, I had it mounted for using the Stamparatus, and I have since then unmounted it, so I'm not going to use the Stamparatus. I just will tell you a little tip that I have that works really well when I'm doing my classes, is that I'm using a label from, let me get my notes out here, from the Tasteful Label dies. And what I'll do when I'm getting ready for class prep is that I'll take a piece of cardstock and I will go ahead and die cut the label out of a piece of scrap paper. And that's what I use as my template for the class, because then all I have to do is, it takes a couple of times just to practice the line up to make sure that it is where I need it to be. So I would place that on my plate, and then I would test it a few times and move it around to see what, where it would need to be. And then when it comes time for class, all they have to do is, let me put my magnets back in place here. They would place the die cut label in here, ink up the stamp, and be all ready to go, and know it's going to always be lined up. So that's a little tip for you. And then I just keep this template in with my dies for that particular die set, and it's always there for easy reference. But since I didn't line this up prior to starting this video, I'm going to just attempt, she says, to line this up freehand. So let's see how well Tony does with this today. What I always do if I'm using the red rubber is I'll do a practice. Sometimes the label can be a little misleading, as the label looks square, but it's not exactly square against the image, if you know what I mean. So actually this one is pretty square. So let's just attempt this here. And it looks like it could be a little bit darker. And that's another benefit of the Stamparatus, is that if this wasn't dark enough the first time I stamped it, I could just re-ink the stamp and then come back and apply it to the label again. And that has a smudge on it. Well, luckily I have some extras that I cut out for class, so I'm going to try this one more time. And we'll see how we go here. Actually, as I'm looking here, as I look at the back of my stamp, try to line that up a little better. Let's give this one more shot. Let's clean up that little bit of over inking that's there. Okay, let's see. See if third time's a charm. Hey, how about that? Third time was a charm. I'll just get these pieces out of the way. Okay, and the Stamparatus is such an amazing tool. And I just wish I had not taken the stamp off of it prior to class, because then I could have saved us some time doing that repositioning there. I'll just quickly put my stamp away so that doesn't end up missing. So this is a piece of Pale Papaya cardstock, and as I said, I use the Tasteful Labels dies. I'm also using a piece of Cinnamon Cider, and that is 4 1/4 inches wide by 11. And then this is scored, let me turn this over so you can see the score a little better. This is scored at 5 1/2 and 4 1/4. And I just noticed on my PDF that I've got a measurement wrong, so I will have to go back and change that. So this is going to be folded on our 5 1/2. And this 4 1/4 is going to be the part of what is called the book binding part of the card. I'm also using our basic white cardstock, and there's 2 pieces cut 4 by 4. We are also using some of our new in colors. This is the 2021 to 2022 in color, the 6x6 Designer Series paper. And I've cut a piece of the Pale Papaya in 1 inch by 4 inch. And then I'm using a piece of DSP, just a tiny piece of DSP that comes out of our Expressions in Ink Specialty paper. This paper is so stunning. It's just got some amazing color through all the patterns. But this particular pattern that I'm using had a backing piece that looks just like the colors of the sun. I thought that would be perfect to use. Let me just pull this page out and show you which one it is. So this is the back of the page that I'm talking about. So all these beautiful oranges and a little bit of towards brown coloring, which I thought very much looked like the sun. On the other side of the paper is this very pretty gold and white striped pattern. But we have such beautiful, beautiful patterns in our Designer Series paper packs. And it's just, it's really hard for me sometimes to decide which side I want to use the most of. Luckily, we get at least 2 sheets of every pattern, so I can get quite a bit of use out of it. But boy, sometimes it's really hard to determine which side I want to use. So out of that paper, I used the smallest size of our layering circle dies. Oh, here's the paper I was looking for. So I just cut a couple of strips because I was cutting this out for class. And the dies are from the layering circles, and it's the smallest solid circle in that die. I think it's a 1 inch die, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there are the pieces. Oh, I'm sorry, and 2 pieces of our Pale Papaya in color ribbon. And then I'm also using some of our champagne rhinestones. So there are the components of the card. Now let me show you the card, which I should have started off with. This Just a little bit backwards here today. You just bear with me. Okay, here's the card. I just thought it was just a cute little fun card to send to a friend. And the way the card opens is that this 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch strip stays adhered, and then it just opens so that you're seeing a 4x4 surface area in the front here. So that's why we put that separate score line in here on the front. So I'm going to move this off to the side just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and get started with these pieces. And this card will go together pretty quickly. Let me just make sure I've got all my inks and everything ready. I'm using cinnamon cider, and I'm also using a couple of our ink spots, a small cinnamon cider, and this is one of our uninked ink spots that you can purchase, and then you use our re-inkers to color them whatever color you want. And I'll show you why I'm using the smaller ones here as I get a little further into the card. So the first thing we want to do is, for some reason I'm missing my bone folder. It's here, it's just buried somewhere. So I am just pressing out my fold there. And I want to apply glue to just this little section here. How big is that section? Yeah, it's 1 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take, and I like to use the liquid glue because I just think it's got a much stronger hold. So I'm just going to put a little bit down here. And again, you don't need a lot. You don't want it glopping out all over the sides. So just a light touch will do. And I'm going to fold that in half, and I'm going to press down on that little channel. Okay. And I'm going to just set that aside and let that set up a little bit. Now with my Pale Papaya DSP, as you noticed, I'm just using a bow that is very simple to do. I use it a lot in my class because it's just a lot easier for the class attendees to work with, as a lot of them don't like working with bows. So I cut a piece of the ribbon that's a little bit longer than the strip of paper. So I'm lining that up in the center, and I just want to turn this over. And it doesn't matter which side of the DSP you use, they both look really nice, and you don't see a lot of it anyway once you put the ribbon on it. So I put a piece of double-sided tape on one side, and I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape on the other end. And with the DSP, you want to make sure that it's not buckling. You don't want to pull this ribbon too tight. You just want to kind of let it lay there naturally. Okay. Now I'm going to apply this in this 1 1/4 inch section of the card front. And I'm going to use my liquid glue. Whenever I'm using something that's got some ribbon folded around on the end, I like the liquid glue. I just think it holds a little bit better. That's just my preference. I'm going to lay that on the inside. And just press, and especially on the ends where you've got the ribbon folded under, you want to make sure that's going to stick really well. And now I can just bring my other piece of ribbon under, and I'm just tying a single knot. This ribbon ties very nicely. It stays in place. It's not going to slip and slide. You're just going to pull that tight knot really tight, and then I'm just going to trim up my ends a little bit. Okay. And now we really just have a little bit of stamping to do. I'm going to grab the 2 pieces of 4x4. Actually, let me just get the little smiley face done first. I am using a little bit of black memento for that. And in that stamp set, there's actually 2 little faces. One's a little smiley face and one's kind of little sideways grin face, so that's a cute one to use as well. We're going to use just the regular little smiley face here today, and we'll stamp that on there. Photopolymer, love it because you can see exactly where it's going. Okay, and then we'll set that aside, and then I'll take my 4x4s, and on the inside of the card it's just a little bit of random stamping down in the corner. Okay, so the reason I like to grab these small ink spots is because I'm working with some really small stamps and small blocks, and I just find it a little bit easier to manage them, and it doesn't matter which color you pick for these little doodads. Let's just call them doodads. It's entirely up to you. I'm just putting a few of them randomly on the corner there. And then for the front part, I want to come in and do my rays first. So I'm going to use the bigger stamp pad. I could still use the little dimensionals, the mini ink spots, but I'm just going to use my regular size pad for this. So all I want to do is just make a placement for where the sun's going to go. So I'm just kind of in that upper left hand corner, so I'm going to stamp the rays first going in one direction, and then again it's the photopolymer, so it's a little easy to see how to line these up, but because I can't really get my head over top of the stamp, I'm just gonna have to guess it there and see. Yeah, not bad, not too bad, Tony. Okay, so now that I know where that's going to be on the card, I can come in and finish up my doodads. Doodads. So again, it's just going to kind of fill in. You're sort of making your own little DSP paper pattern here with these little symbols. And make sure you do turn your stamp so it's going in different directions. You don't want it to seem like it's all going in the same direction, and also make sure you stamp off on the edges. Okay, doesn't have to all stay within the square of the card. So let me try to fill it in a little bit here. So that's again a really quick way, kind of making your own design with some of it. Sometimes these are called filler stamps, I guess. So again, as little or as many as you want to fill out that pattern. I like to keep a rubber band around these because there's really no locking mechanism on the small ink pads, and it's pretty easy to knock the lids off of them. So I was putting a little piece of tape on one side of one, but then I found these small rubber bands on Amazon, and I've been using those, and they work really well. So now we're just going to put this card together. I'm going to say this is super quick. If you want to make a few of them, you go ahead and cut your cardstock out for several of them, and you can knock these out in no time whatsoever. We'll place that on the inside. And I don't generally put a sentiment on the inside of my cards for a card class. And actually, some of my class attendees have told me they prefer it that way because they're not always sure who the recipient's going to be or how they really want what they want the sentiment to be. So they will just go back home and add their own sentiments. Occasionally I will. if I find a set that just really works well together. And then I still give them the option. They want to put the put the sentiments in or not. I'm picking up the dimensionals and saying dimensional. So I just put a couple here on the back of Mr. Sunny Face. Oops. And pop him in place. And then the same for our sentiment. Again, I tend to be a little generous with dimensionals. I just don't want my card to ever fall apart if, you know, it's been sitting around for a little bit. And that just goes in this lower corner. And that's it. A very, very quick card. Let's say this little sunny face just makes me smile when I see it. And hopefully it will make you smile too. It's just a nice little stamp set to have on hand for cheering up someone that might need it. It'd be great for doing a get well card. And then in class we just we also stamped our envelope. That's the little sideways grin, the other stamp set. So I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you again for joining me, and I hope to see you soon.